Hello everybody, welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Serge.
I got a bit of deja vu. My name's James.
Yeah. We might be recording because someone might not have hit record on the recorder, but copy paste. Here we go again. We were talking about this week that has just passed. We obviously have had the West Ham Norwich game midweek last week, and then
I've now got to blag it off that I didn't already find out how shit your game week was.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be
funny the first time. It's not going to be funny this time.
It seems to be a running thing though, in that it's a check-in. But we'll cover off our game weeks. We do have a bit to cover off in terms of the 3 days that we have left before the overhaul, but we are now very much in hibernation mode in Sky until we get to this overhaul. So we're going to cover off a bit to do with that, and obviously we have everybody's Twitter questions as well that we can go through. My game week, I think, is the perfect place to start. So I was on a march, mate. I was on a march. My goal,
a Suge kind of march,
a march, but my goal was 5k by overhaul and not spunk a load of transfers up the wall, which I'm still on 25 transfers and I only used one this week. But I feel like I've taken a step. Well, I have taken a step back because my rank's taken a step back, mate. But could have been worse. But yeah, I was a bit disheartened on Sunday. I went Antonio last Wednesday. I thought the shot tier or the higher ceiling over Bowen, and to be clear, over Bowen, and I own both, was worth it. Clearly it wasn't.
Ouch.
Against Norwich. That was a bit of a difficult one. I don't own Conor Gallagher. I'd sold him prior to when he'd got COVID.
So did you have Sanchez left?
Yeah, I've got Robert Sanchez. So I'd sold Conor Gallagher thinking I wouldn't need him for captaincy, and then after that is Liverpool and then Overhaul. So he's expendable when other players have got more games. So missed that captaincy haul. It was decent enough on Friday. So I'm thinking, here we go again. Went with Cristiano Ronaldo on the Saturday, mate, which I thought majority of people would go Cristiano Ronaldo. You were obviously thinking that majority of people didn't.
No, most people went with Cancelo, mate.
Why?
Because I think it was blindly obvious. There was enough doubt about Ronaldo, although it did look on Friday that he was going to play. I'd mentioned Calvert-Lewin as an alternative. I was considering playing Norwich. There was also a rumour about him, plus... just bottom line, Everton are not very good. And then looking at it and going, we'd spoken on our podcast on Friday about you'd back City for a clean sheet. I was predicting...
Yeah, I thought they'd win 1-0, 2-0.
I was predicting 0-0 for the game. So I'm looking at it in front of my face going, so I'm predicting a clean sheet for Cancelo. I would predict him to get passing tail, which he didn't, but he got the assist to make up for it.
He got an assist for Kevin De Bruyne.
Why am I overthinking this? You got a player who's like 97% owned in the top 1,000. There's not actually anything to... It was like the Chelsea fixture had put me off, but that was psychological because in my mind I was expecting Cancelo to hit a 10-pointer anyway, and that was enough. Whereas there was enough risk in the Ronaldo, Calvert-Lewin picks as far as I was concerned, and didn't overly fancied both to score if they played, but not overly to outperform the 10-pointer. So there was no point going elsewhere. No,
luckily I avoided. I didn't have Harry Kane, so there was no issues on the Sunday around Spurs coverage or players that I'd bought. But I went Antonio again over Bowen. Not really. Those are mistakes. That's basically me not looking at the ownership and trying to understand, go with the herd on that and trying to be a bit different. Owning Bowen meant that the difference wasn't huge, right? It wasn't like a disaster. Had I not owned Bowen, I'd be really in the mud, as they say. The cool kids on Twitter say mudded.
Can I be honest? No fucking cool kids say in the mud.
Okay.
Like nobody cool says in the mud.
All right,
it's not cool.
All right, cool, good.
Full stop. It's not cool.
I feel good now because I'll never say it on Twitter or anywhere.
No, me neither.
And so missed out there again. And then obviously last night I had Rudiger and I captained Rudiger, and it doesn't make any difference because so did basically everybody else. Is that your best
captaincy result of the week?
Yeah. Yes.
How have you managed that?
Yes. Having said that, in and around there, I scored 61
points. It was harder to miss the returns.
It's true. I mean, the players that people captain, like Cancelo, I still owned him, so I didn't get burnt as badly.
You still owned Bowen.
And Norgard and Rafinha both chipped in with 5-pointers, and James Ward-Prowse popped up with a 9-pointer, so it could have been worse. And I ended on 61 points. So from 5,200 and something, I dropped to outside to 6k. And when I dropped outside 6k, I actually genuinely felt, okay, 5k by Overhaul is now not possible. I'm now 5,750. I'll be within a couple hundred spots of 5k, which is fine. And I've got 25 transfers left. The one move I did make at the weekend, mate, I sold Salah and I bought Dennis on Saturday, which was timing-wise was right. So I didn't cock that up. But obviously lost the fixture yesterday. But he's sitting there ready to captain for his 6 goals that he's going to score on Friday night against Norwich, mate.
Yeah, dream on, mate. I captained Bowen last Wednesday, was my only ownership in the game. I captained Gallagher Friday night, like many. I did jump like about 150 places or so through Gallagher on Friday night. I'm not quite sure how that happened.
I guess a lot had done what I'd done and moved off him because of the whole COVID situation.
Saturday, Cancelo. Sunday, I went Bowen again. Last night, I went Rudiger. So
what you're basically saying is I pick the right captain every day. Fucking boring bastard. Picking the safe option.
To be honest, it's a good fucking job that I did because the rest of my players did absolutely naff all. So the only other returnees I had was De Gea 4 points at Villa, Rafinha 5 points at West Ham, blank from Bernardo, blank from Mbumo, blank from Calvert-Lewin, blank from Josh King, who I bought myself for Conor Gallagher on Saturday. Blank from Cristiano Ronaldo complete as in no-show. So, and Gabriel no-show as well. So down to 9 players.
Nothing anywhere.
No, but it's a good job I did go the way that I went. And I've had a good week out of it. I'm up to 782nd, which is not anything to like get that excited about. But it's nice to kind of see myself well inside the top 1,000 now and begin hopefully an assault on the top 100.
Lovely, jubbly. 79 points, right? You got overall?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I got 61, so 18 points in there. Literally, like you mentioned, Bowen captaincy was the issue there. So we keep it moving. We now have 3 match days left before Overhaul, and we'll cover off kind of captaincy and what we're going to do with those days as well. And you mentioned to me before we started talking though that you're worried that Overhaul, we are going a little bit template with Overhaul around the corner, which I can understand with the performance and price of certain players in the game. When Overhaul comes round, we'll obviously create plenty of content in that 2-week window for all of you Sky Fantasy Football players. If you are scared that it's going to be very heavily template, James, I don't even know what value that content is going to be.
No, because it's still the importance is going to be to get the kind of minor decisions. I say the minor decisions, the differential decisions, the either or decisions correct. But I think there are already a lot of players as it stands, irrespective of fixtures, that are probably going to go into template Overhaul teams. No one's going to go without Salah or Cancelo as it stands, right?
No.
I don't think so. I can't see any reason why.
Nah, Salah, he'll be back from AFCON. Can't go without him. Basically, I'm perma-cap, but captain him whenever he's playing generally.
Adam Webster Brighton, after last night, he's going to be getting rave reviews. Jamie Carragher tweeting out after the game that he's the best 2-footed defender that England have got. He's the sort of thing that's going to alert every other co-commentator in the UK who are then, they've got Webster kind of flagged in their mind now because Carragher's seen as one of the top guys. Going to follow that. He got given man a match on BT last night, rightly so, by the way. It wasn't just his goal, it was an excellent performance. And he's a player we all had our eye on earlier on, £7 million. Brighton don't even have a fixture in that first midweek, and I bet he still lands in the majority of teams because after that blank in the first midweek after Overhaul, they've got some very good fixtures and a couple of fixtures to catch up. So Webster at 7 million, I think is going to be really popular. I think Laporte's going to be really popular.
Yeah.
He's now got more bonus points than Ruben Diaz. I've thought for a long time he's worth the saving. In terms of points,
bonus
they're
points
very
being
similar.
tier points in passes, tackles. And,
obviously Diaz didn't play at the weekend. There's nothing to worry about that. But they're very close on points now. And Laporte, he just looks an obvious left-footed first-choice centre-back now for Manchester City. At 9.1. If you'd known at the start of the season Laporte was going to play every week, he wouldn't be 9.1.
Agreed. It was because he didn't play last year. John Stone's sticking him out, man.
He's going to be like Ruben Diaz's price next season, isn't he? He's going to go into sort of the 10.5 million zone.
Yeah, and you know what happened? John Stones will be cheap.
Stones
and
will come back
play every week.
probably. You know how it works.
Yeah.
So. In the midfield, I feel like already we're restricting ourselves to limited choices. So players like Norgard is the obvious budget one if you need the budget. But most people, I think, will probably even skip that. Rafinha, obviously, talismanic with Leeds. Jared Bowen,
Also
massive,
talismanic right now.
massive hot streak at the moment. Gallagher, amazing price. I mean, if you're trying to save the money, as good as Norgard's been, it's difficult to justify not paying the 1.1 million extra for Gallagher than Norgard unless you desperately need it. It's worth saying, I think Gallagher does have Chelsea coming up a few weeks after Overhaul, I think, which he could miss. But it's a fixture you're not overly expecting something in anyway. Rodri, passing tiers through the roof. So, I mean, Rodri is arguably the best defensive player in the game for Manchester City.
Yeah.
There's a debate to be had of that. Although I think Sterling, I noticed, is only second for forwards bonus points after Salah, but it's a massive drop-off. And the other midfield name I haven't mentioned, which is fairly obvious, is James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah.
Because as it stands now, and we are probably going to get a fixture dump before Overhaul period concludes and the fixtures restart, currently James Ward-Prowse at Southampton is the only single game day of interest. The Friday night fixture against Norwich, I want to say it's the 25th, I think, Suj, on the Friday night.
February.
Yeah, obviously.
I know the 25th is a Friday, so
that'll be it then. And obviously Chelsea-Leicester was going to be single game day on Sunday the 27th. We now know that won't happen because Chelsea are obviously competing in the Carabao Cup final after pulling down my football team's trousers last week again. So I feel like when you put that together and you go midfield, there's a core of kind of 6-7 options. Forwards, no one really wants anyone other than Salah at the moment. Defensive players, Webster, Cancelo, Laporte. You may want a Rudiger.
Chucking a Chelsea boy there. Yeah.
There's not going to be much. That's almost it.
Yeah.
Then from there, it's how much do you want to deviate from that? But I think the players near the top are going to be, and I'm probably missing a player or two, are going to be quite near that core. So differential ones are going to be who's the second or third forwards. If you go that way, that's almost going to be the big call, and that might be defined by what fixture dump we get. So before
I was going to say, I'm starting to feel like, if a load of people are going to go template, the players that are clever enough to figure out where the gains are on fixtures and gamble on the right, Burnley, for example, might make really big ground. I pick Burnley because they've got so many games to rearrange, but if you gamble on a team or two that have a number of, like Villa, for example, like you didn't mention a single Villa player there, but we know they got extra games and stuff.
But if Ollie
you
Watkins
gamble on the right
has
one,
the right fixtures, then you go
in.
Yeah,
Coutinho,
absolutely.
Or if
Coutinho
you really fancy
might
it.
be someone.
He loves a shot, doesn't he? So
I've seen. I think there's about 2,000 people have bought Coutinho
already.
this week.
What price is he in Sky? You know that we
I don't even know. It's not even a conversation till next week, is it?
Yeah, I mean, like FPL, for example, you look at it straight away. With Sky, I haven't even looked. I'm going to pull it up, mate, in a second.
I think it's 80.
But you know they do this stupid thing in Sky. They're down as Villa, not Aston. 8.4 million.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
Coutinho.
So he might obviously come into the conversation, absolutely, to add another potential name.
Same price as JWP.
But to be honest, if you break that down, you say, right, I'm possibly going to want Ward-Prowse, Rafinha, Jared Bowen, for example, and Conor Gallagher. Norgard is another one to possibly add into the mix, depending on budget, perhaps how heavy you might go defensively. You're then going to be forced in, if Villa have great fixtures, those midfielders are probably going to force you to go for Watkins rather than Coutinho anyway, because of the lack of choices up front.
Yeah.
So before we get the midweek fixtures in February, when the game restarts after this weekend, we should get the March TV fixtures, and we should also get some announcements in terms of some rearranged games into midweek periods, which are then obviously presumably going to give us some more single game days, and that will influence the decision. My advice to people thinking like about their Overhaul team already is, there's a summary, forget about it.
Yeah, there's nothing, not even
we're
worth
going to
thinking
get
about.
more information between now and kickoff.
And we will be ready to give you content as and when we know as well. Definitely podding during the Overhaul period.
We'll pod the next couple of Wednesdays,
release
don't worry about that.
Our final Overhaul teams on things like the differential show and what have you, for sure. So yeah, let's just cover off captaincy, James, for what it's worth between now and Overhaul. So we've obviously got Friday. You've Josh King, so you're going to go Josh King.
You're not captaining anyone tonight?
Yes.
Good point, James.
Cristiano.
Yeah, it'd be Ronaldo for me.
Yeah.
Could you make any case to buy a player tonight?
Cristiano.
You'd still buy him tonight if he's in the team?
Yeah.
If you didn't own?
Yeah.
I wouldn't bother. Like, honestly, if you were sitting there with just Mbumo, I'd captain Mbumo tonight. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother.
So if you had no coverage, you wouldn't buy anyone?
There's one case I could make to buy a player tonight if you haven't got, and I think that's a Leicester player. And the reason I say that is I think there's a few people might be a bit short Sunday. So I noticed there was a few people last night saying, got no Chelsea player, no Brighton player. I saw a few people skipping it. Those two teams obviously play on Sunday. Arsenal, Burnley, there'll be players who haven't got any coverage, and even those that do.
Those two even going to play?
Well, exactly. I have Gabriel, for example. There has to be some doubt about
Ben
the
White's
fixture.
still sitting there for me, yeah.
As it stands, it looks like Arsenal are probably going to play Liverpool tomorrow night, but the doubt remains about Burnley. If you've got no Liverpool coverage, I've got no Liverpool coverage at the moment. So there's a lot of people who have Trent. That's obviously fine for Sunday. But then it does mean that you could, in theory, if you've got no coverage tonight, I think buy a Leicester player and have 2 consecutive captaincies. It's Tottenham this evening and obviously Brighton on Sunday. So I think there is a case for a Tielemans or a Maddison, maybe even a Harvey Barnes. You'll obviously see the team tonight. Punt on one of those 3 if you have no coverage tonight and if you intend to captain that Leicester player again on Sunday. I don't think many people are going to fall into that category. At that point, you're effective 4 for 1, and I think you're probably worth it. But otherwise, no. And that's why I say no to a Ronaldo, because I don't think you're going to captain Ronaldo against West Ham on Saturday, even if you own him. It's not the best choice.
Who is the best choice then?
On Saturday, it's Cancelo again, isn't it? And there's alternatives. There's better alternatives. Rafinha against Newcastle if the game goes ahead.
Okay, so I disagree. I just have. I was there on Sunday and I saw Issa Diop, and Ronaldo versus Issa Diop is basically men against boys. If Zuma isn't fit, if Zuma's not fit, how leaky have West Ham been? If Zuma isn't fit for that game, United will score goals.
You think? I think you'll get a result there, mate, with whatever team you turn up with.
Always bloody do, don't we?
You're better
against
than them.
The big teams.
You're better than them.
Yeah, it will get a result. Doesn't mean they won't score. But yeah, I can see your logic there. And Cancelo's just Mr. Reliable. You don't think Southampton can score?
It's the same thing. The problem with Cancelo and captain, it's the 5:30 game, so there's no team lineup. But you look at it this week and go, Cancelo's got no Man City, got no midweek fixture. We're obviously going to have no midweek fixture next week. And by the way, the Telegraph have reported that between this weekend's fixtures and the fourth round of the FA Cup, the Premier League intends to keep those 2 weeks completely free. So Overhaul is likely to begin as of the end of Chelsea-Tottenham on Sunday night, unless there's an announcement on Friday that changes that. But there's literally no reason for João Cancelo not to play at Southampton. None. So it's the same principle as last week. I'd look at it again and go, it's a potential 10-pointer, isn't it? And with him, it's always potential for more. Why am I overthinking this again? It's at 97% ownership in the top 1,000. It's not one where I look at it and go, do you know what? I want to take him on. So it's just Cancelo again for me on Saturday. There's no reason to think he won't play.
I'm going to do the same. And I'm going to do it because I trust you.
You're not going to go Ronaldo?
No, I trust you.
No, but honestly, look at it like that. With the City players, the fear with the captaincy and Sky Fantasy often comes from will they play? What legitimate reason could you possibly give for Cancelo not to play at Southampton this weekend?
He's solid.
There's none.
Yeah. And on the Sunday, I've got Rudiger at home to you guys, and I quite fancy Chelsea for a clean sheet there. So I'm going to go Rudiger.
Well, that might be what I'm down to if obviously Arsenal Burnley's off, because I've got no.
I've got Ben White
coverage
sitting in there.
Well, at least you've got the secondary. But yeah, I would go Rudiger. It depends. It depends a little bit on what I see from Spurs at Leicester this evening. But I think Tottenham have an inferiority complex when it comes to playing against Chelsea at the moment, and it looks like he's a banker Parsons here. That's a certainty, and it looks like a banker clean sheet as well. There's no reason Rudiger is again. What is their reason for him not to play? None, unless he got COVID or is injured. So I think Rudiger for me against Tottenham rather than Gabriel against Burnley would be the better call. But that's all I have for Sunday. Friday, I'll be on Josh King, obviously.
Indeed.
You'll be on Dennis, I'll take it.
I will be.
Maybe you'll win the battle this week.
We never know. There are stranger things that have happened. Like, is it Aldershot's managers' press conferences and so on?
Oh, wow. If you haven't seen the Aldershot manager's press conference, you need to go and find that shit.
We do. We'll get into some of these Twitter questions, shall we, James?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because we've had a few, and we'll have a bit of fun, and then we'll leave it for everybody to go and chill out on Sky, because like James mentioned, you shouldn't be overthinking Overhaul, and there's not massive cases for transfers this weekend. Starting with FPL Eze, says Friday night, skip or use a transfer for King or Dennis? Skip
now.
I like Skip.
I think
as well. Nice
there
crisps.
was I love Oliver Skip, great bloke. I think that I went last Saturday. I still think, in spite of the Tuesday postponement, that was the right thing to do. Obviously, subject to who you were selling. In my case, selling Conor Gallagher. It's turned out as an effective 3-for-1 rather than a possibly 4 or even 5-for-1. I still think it was the right thing to do. For those who were planning to buy King last night, say sell Antonio, for example, was the one we highlighted last week. That might work. Keep Antonio for Leeds, then move on the Tuesday night. I wouldn't bother now.
FPL Hambone's got a different question. Already got King and a relatively high rank, and is tempted to buy Dennis too and captain him to preserve the rank going into Overhaul. So would doubling up help in that situation? It's a waste of a transfer, isn't it?
No, I mean, he'll certainly win out Friday night, but think of it this way, the player you might even buy, so he wants to buy Dennis to captain him as well instead. If he does that, it's a certainty Josh King will go off.
It's true, you know.
And then you've lost.
Always happens.
Then, despite the fact you've got the two, you've lost to the people who've just captained Josh King, right? Admittedly, Dennis's ownership's going to be more. Wouldn't shit yourself about it. Go with the horse that you've got and keep going. There is no reason now, even for non-owners, I think, to invest in that football match. None. João Pedro was probably the right buy, by the way, ironically.
Alex Turner, I'm about 5k, so am I. And I've got transfers in hand, 26. So do I, 25. What would you do post-Overhaul to keep the game interesting for the rest of the season? Shall I answer it? Because you're
sounds like
basically
it's you, yeah.
You're basically me, but called Alex instead of Such. The thing for me is this game is about discipline and consistency, right? Not missing captaincy days. And regardless of where you are and what you should still be, your thought processes and what you do in making decisions and transfers has to have consistency throughout the entire season. And so if you let it drop, all you're doing is letting yourself get into bad habits for next season. Like for me, the biggest challenge with this is the consistency. So I have to force myself to create good habits of remembering when to make transfers, remembering who to captain, how I'm making my decisions.
Remembering to check WhatsApp when I message you.
All the rest of it. Because it will serve you well for next season. So to keep it interesting, it's like, do you want to do well next year? If you want to do well next year, when you get a blank slate and can really push, then use it to build good habits for the rest of this year. And set yourself micro goals. So I set myself like 5k by Overhaul. Then my next thing is going to be looking at the fixtures, maybe 2k by end of March when we know the TV fixtures. So that period that we know the TV fixtures at Overhaul, plan to get to 2k for the end of that. And then 1k by the end of the season or whatever it may be. Some micro goals. But just know that your muscle memory and discipline on decision making and transfers and understanding that, and also in scenarios where you make mistakes, which we all do, even the good ones in the top make mistakes, figure out why you did what you did, and would you do it again? Bowen and Antonio is a classic example for me. I don't have a good reason for wanting to go against Bowen. I just did it. Next time, I'm not going to do it. Like Cancelo versus Ronaldo.
There's no reason for you not to go against it again when you're adrift like that.
If I feel it, yeah. But I won't be adrift. Next time I'm going to be 3-figure rank all the way.
Okay, the Sky listeners can't wait for that day. This podcast will probably become boring as and when that happens. Yeah. My second team is about 3.5k at the moment, and I've got 24 transfers left. Now, my strategy with that is been to kind of leave it dead. Each have a spread of one player from 11 different teams. Leave that as dead as possible until you need physical captaincy coverage. And considering what we're speaking about, a template, it's highly likely for me then that I'm going a lot of those individual players on Overhaul that I said. So Salah, Cancelo, Rudiger, Bowen, Rafinha, Ward-Prowse, these single game week players, maybe even throw in Son for some Tottenham coverage by that point, for example, and leave it dead as long as possible, because the one advantage you have with that transfer count left is the end.
Correct.
Because we know from experience that people are going to get to match week 36 or whatever.
Run out.
And that's even the experienced players. It's almost an inevitability with this fixture dump that we're going to get. We're going to have so many single game day fixtures. We can't see them at the moment, that are probably going to rock up, or at least days where suddenly it will drop again. Burnley, Watford and Brighton, Chelsea on a Tuesday night. Those two fixtures that would have been last night. And a lot of people have gone into last night with no coverage. That sort of thing's going to happen again and make you force into transfers that perhaps you wouldn't have planned. So we know that the real gain, I think, for those within hand is we know match week 36 is going to be a little monster, isn't it? And a lot of people are going to be stuck at that point. And so patience.
Yeah.
Patience is really important.
Indeed. Like AD Tour says, Burnley have plenty of fixtures in hand. Is it worth not bringing them in an overhaul? Well, we don't know the fixtures yet. So when we know the fixtures, I think we can address it.
Okay, statistic for you. Thank you to our friend FF Stuff, Frank. I nicked this from his website. Man City, 363 bonus points so far this season. Burnley players, guess how many? Bonus points.
363 for City.
Yeah.
And we've had about 20 weeks.
How many for Burnley? Bonus points.
I know this is an audio podcast, so I should speak.
Yes, you should, yes.
70.
Had you already seen the graphic?
Nah.
It's exactly 70.
Oh, is it? I was thinking, right, so I was going to go 60 something, like a 70. It was really just like a fifth of or something like that.
Now, since we're on it, I'll nick this obviously from FF Stuff. Man City.
Shout out, Frank.
Man City, 363 bonus points so far this season. These are the tier points, obviously.
Yeah.
Chelsea, nearly 100 less, 287.
Are they second, are they?
Yeah. Liverpool, 259.
So hang on a second. So 363 to 263 is the
287.
Is the drop off from first to second.
Yeah.
So City are cleaning up.
Yeah.
Yet it's the same problem in FPL. We're like, which one? So none. But in this game,
so Laporte, Cancelo, Rodri is reasonable to go with,
it's crazy,
depending on.
Yeah.
But the obvious thing with City is because I think most of us would look now and go, right, yeah, sod it. I want Laporte, Cancelo, Rodri, fine. But they're one team we know there's no extra fixtures, right? And then to bring your Skyhead back round, you go, fuck, they're the team that's got the least fixtures. Do I then just go Cancelo and go forget about it? And these are some of the more interesting kind of decisions for people on Overhaul. So it's a drop off to Chelsea, Liverpool. Then it's a big drop off to Brighton, 202 on 4. And that's because Brighton are joint fourth, unbelievably, with Tottenham. I'm not quite sure how. For passing bonuses this season. Burnley, 70 bonus points is the lowest by a distance. Watford, 106. Everton, 108. Even Brentford, 132. And I've seen people joking about it, and I think they generally are joking about the idea of blanket Burnley defence, like go for a back four and Nick Pope. Reality is, what are you getting from a Burnley defender on a clean sheet?
6.
7.
7.
Cancelo's pulling me 5 every week anyway. You're only going to captain one of those, and the reality is, Burnley right now are 20th in the league. So you can say they've got the most amount of fixtures. They're not right. Now Pope is the only Burnley player to consider. Because exactly that, you go, right, okay, single game days, but then take a closer inspection on Burnley's fixtures after Overhaul. Their fixture run is rough. And even the fixtures that get added, let's say we've got the extra Aston Villa fixture. What do you want? Do you want to captain Nick Pope, or do you want to get the Villa player in like Coutinho, Watkins? I think you want to get the Villa player in. If suddenly Tottenham and Burnley gets thrown in and it's an extra and it's a single game day, what do you want? Do you want Pope or do you want Kane or Son?
Yeah. Forget Burnley. Like I'll only do it if there's a 2-for-1, hop on, hop off. But I'm not bothered, to be honest with you.
There is no knowing whether these Burnley fixtures are going to come soon or not. I.e., right after Overhaul. Again, people joking about, they're going to have quintuple game weeks and shit like this. They're not. Those fixtures are going to get spread. The only Burnley player that would remotely be of interest to me is Nick Pope. And I would need to see fixture dump that made me look at it and go, for example, they've got Everton single game day maybe, or even the Watford game comes around again and I go, yeah, I'm going to want him. That's coming soon. I am going to captain Nick Pope in that fixture. Otherwise, the fixtures ain't good either. Got a tough run, Burnley.
Gary Mansell says, if he had 1,000 guesses, he wouldn't have thought you'd have gone with that picture on Twitter for the questions, which is Rudiger.
Scoring against Tottenham last week. Well, yeah, there is that as well to add to it, and thanks for pointing that out. Listen, I can be unbiased in this. I've said I'm going to captain Rudiger on Sunday. Rudiger's scored twice against Tottenham this season already. I mean, yeah, it could easily be a 16-pointer or so for Rudiger times 2 on Sunday. So, yeah, I didn't really want to use that picture, but I thought it was the right thing to do because I think he's the best captaincy option on Sunday, actually. I would go Rudiger over Trent on Sunday.
Manon Martin is sat on Eric Dyer. That's probably why Dyer's injured. Martin, why did you sit on him, mate? Would you make a transfer on 20 left if he's still out, or just ride it out?
No. The one reason I think... was this the first time we recorded, or this time, Sergio, I was talking about Leicester players?
No, this time.
It was this time. I've already spoken about it.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. The only reason to make a transfer is if you have no coverage tonight and no coverage on Sunday.
I wouldn't even say...
And you will captain the Leicester player.
I wouldn't even say no coverage Sunday, but if you're
captain
buying the Leicester player to captain tonight
Yeah.
and captain on Sunday, fine. Otherwise, it's a no.
Paul, Sky player in FPL, who's clearly better at this game than us anyway, but let's answer his question. From tomorrow's games, which was asked yesterday, so today's games, who would you most like to punt on but won't because it's too close to Overhaul?
A Leicester player.
There we go. Tielemans or what?
I think... Do you know what? I would go Barnes. It's only 2 games. I'd go with what could be a big ceiling. I think I'd go Harvey Barnes. I've got a soft spot for him, you know that.
Ultra Close, Darren says, if Gerrard starts getting a tune out of Villa, would any of their defensive assets be an option post-Overhaul? Luca Dean or what have you?
No, I don't think so. I'll be honest, I've not really looked at the passing data for Villa since Gerrard's gone in there. But they'll certainly have had an upturn since Dean Smith, but I don't think it will be big to warrant looking at Mings or Konsa. Not going to keep enough clean sheets to feel like you keep Luca Dean on side. Same will apply to Matty Cash. So, no, Villa, I'd be more interested. Even that, if you wanted to defend, I'd probably still go Emi Martinez, as long as he can keep his legs shut.
Ian Parron's got a question, which I think he's answered in his question, if I'm honest with you, mate, because he says there's 47% of matches still to be played. Do you think that we'll get a record high points total in Sky? So last year's winning score was 3,643. Liam Dorian got 3,342 the year before. The current leader would get 3,830 if they maintain the same rate. So obviously it's jumping up by a couple hundred points for the winner every season. The fact that we're on a run rate for it, and there's going to be massive advantage gains with fixture pile up, so hop on hop offs is going to be even more prevalent, means yes, it's a simple answer, right?
It certainly looks that way. Shout out to Will Bonner, who's top at the moment, who I saw, probably, bless him, probably had a little bit of a heart attack last night because his team disappeared from the leaderboard.
I saw.
He'd suddenly, his team didn't disappear, but suddenly was on minus 2,000 points, and you would panic because obviously there's been a few more FPL hacks and stuff. That's not possible in Sky unless someone's hacking your Sky Bet account. But even still, you still couldn't get to minus points. So it was clearly you'd only use the transfers. Someone could muck you up.
There's a bug in the system.
Someone could muck you up 5 transfers. It's the worst they could do, basically. But well done to Will, who's obviously top at the moment.
Yeah.
He has got his team
Just
back.
thinking about that, isn't that
first.
a really fucking obvious way for FPL to sort their shit? Like, who makes 1,000 transfers in a week? Like, at the point that someone's made more than 5 transfers, stop. Like, don't let them without...
Unless you've activated the wild card or the free hit.
Yeah.
Well, maybe might be a way.
Well, anyway,
obviously,
that's
in Sky's case,
another
the only time you can do it is obviously if you
Overhaul.
are on Overhaul. So from that perspective, it's probably actually easier to manage for Sky.
Yeah. Dave Simple Goal says Overhaul teams could be quite team plate, should we call it? Team plate. Obviously, it's a risky move, but what's the real differential Overhaul team that he has a chance of propelling? Or maybe that's something, he says he's a week early for that question. I think it's worth, setting up a kind of differential Overhaul team for Sky. Maybe 50% or less ownership or whatever would be a good number.
Yeah, I mean,
Sky.
listen, once the obviously the Overhaul period opens after Sunday, people will start playing with their teams, I think particularly in the top 1,000. Then we can start to get an idea of of where it's at and where people are going, even if we haven't got any fixtures next week. But yes, I think it's a good shout for us to certainly look at differentials, because other than probably Will, you're going to need something somewhere that's differential to what Will's doing in first, right? Dave, get a differential or two. So we can look at that. Yeah. But we might have fixture dump by next Wednesday, in which case we can look at 2 months. I really think we'll be able to look at all of February, March before the February fixtures start. So a rare, long period we can really look at and plan.
Tom Laslett has the last question of the show, James. There were a few others, but they're basically, should I buy this player? And we've already answered all of them. It's basically, should I buy King or Dennis? We've answered that. No. Tom wants to know, is there anything either of you have learned about the way you've played the game this season that you want to improve or change next season? Yeah, the way I play the game. But I think I fell away early and then have been climbing back up. And I fell away early by always thinking that better will come in the future rather than looking and taking what is in front of me right now. And I've obviously, the thing is, what I like about what you do is you've got like, if this happens, then I'll do this. If this happens, then I'll do this. And if this happens, then I'll do this. I've been in 3 or 4 situations where I haven't pre-planned my ABC options and then do nothing. And it's hurt me. So I just need to get better and more organised. Like, yeah. I don't give the game enough time, which may never change. I'm quite self-aware of why I'm not in the top 1,000 or an elite player in this game, but you never know.
The next step for me is, and I will do this, and I'll probably do this before Overhaul, is set up definitive rules of Sky. I.e., when you're thinking about making a transfer, something happens sometimes where you might have someone on a single game day and they're not in the team, and it's like, oh, what do you do? Like last year, Salah wasn't in the team against Burnley, and I panicked and bought Joel Matip back. And it nearly hauled, but it turned out to be disastrous. He got like a 1-pointer, then he got injured as well anyway. It was a complete waste of 2 transfers eventually. What I want to do is set up a checklist that kind of gets you into that moment and defines whether it's worth it or not. All the things, whether you're following it and saying, is this person tier capable? What am I doing with this person longer? And I want kind of a 5-point checklist where I can then look at it and say, you meet all the criteria, fine, you're in. Because when you've got that short-term decision-making, you make rash decisions, right? It's obvious. In this game, so often, we plan for weeks. We go, that's what I'm going to do in 3 weeks. Then the moment comes and the team line-up's different. You have to think on your feet. And that's when you're most likely to make mistakes. And I think there's a few of them I've made. I would look back at someone like Mbumo. And it's interesting because a lot of us went with him when obviously he was kind of hitting the post every week back in sort of the October period or whatever. And I look back at it and go, he would never fit criteria 1 there, for example. Are you tier capable on a regular basis? It was one where you go, he's OOP up front, but that doesn't mean as much in Sky as it would do in other fantasy games. What
you're describing is where you fit the narrative you find the narrative to fit the decision rather than making the decision off the criteria, which is exactly right.
The narrative there is, he could be unbelievable. He's an OOP midfielder playing out of position. If it goes right, I'm clever dig. The reality, looking back on it in hindsight, is now I know more about this player. He is not tier capable on a regular basis, despite how many shots he's having, because he's so fucking wayward. He's never hitting shot tiers, right? So you look back on that now and go, regrettable move. Ironically, he got me them 20 points against Watford, which were really handy when it mattered most. But that's the sort of thing I'd look back on it now and be a bit stronger and go, no. Because he's inevitable 2 transfers as well. So that would be the other sort of thing you'd put in when you're buying a player. Go, if I buy this player, is it inevitable that I'm going to sell them? If so, is there a plan? And you spin off from there. So that's something I really want to do over Overhaul. Maybe we'll discuss it.
I think it's a really interesting thing to do. And perhaps what I know in terms of that decision-making criteria, we'll talk about it on the pod, but it's the kind of thing that James will share with our Patreons on Slack as well.
Yeah, I'm only doing that on Patreon.
It's pretty good, because there's a chance to plug Patreon. There we go. That's all the Twitter questions, and that's our Sky show for this week. Of course, when we record next week, Overhaul will have begun, and begun being the operative word, will not be wrapping up and finishing, but there'll be plenty of content for you next week on stats, numbers, tier points, and we'll probably get a little bit more geeky around some of that stuff during that break. If you are a keen Sky Fantasy Football player, I did mention their Patreon. This decision-making matrix might be next season, but James does have a fixture planning spreadsheet that shows you the single game days and all that kind of stuff. And the Slack community is pretty active on the old Sky Fantasy Football. Some really good managers in there, loads in the top, like 100 and 200 and that kind of thing. You may want to check it out. Patreon.com/Planet FPL. This show is always going to be there for you. If not, as with all of our other content, what's left this week, James? Tomorrow, COTC.
Yes, Chelsea versus Tottenham with Ted Moore and Ricky Saunders. And Friday we'll be reviewing the end of FPL's shit show game week 22.
Indeed, we will. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you are listening to the podcast or YouTube. And we'll be back at you tomorrow. Stay safe, my friends. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck this week. Cue music, please, man child.